Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. On today's show, we swing into the multiverse with the newest release, Spider-Man No Way Home. Joining me as ever is the Tom Holland to my Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire. Now that's not a spoiler, this is purely resorting to the fact that he's the more fresh-faced of us two. It's Lee Hutchison, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks. I feel very generously described as fresh-faced for someone that's nearly 35, feeling a bit haggard with age and time during COVID. So, yeah, I'll take that for now.
Absolutely, I'm certainly more at 41. I'm definitely more in this sort of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2. My back sort of, and my arm now since I got boosted yesterday. Got boosted straight after Spider-Man. No superpowers yet, but I guess we'll have to see. I'll give it a couple of days. So, yeah. I think it's fair to say that actually no, it's probably fair to say it's probably one of the two biggest releases still to come to cinemas at the moment. We cannot discount Matrix Resurrections. With a new Spider-Man film and a new Matrix film, it kind of feels like 2002 or 2003 at the moment. Although is the CGI any better? Well, I guess we'll have to find out. So, Spider-Man No Way Home. How to succinctly describe this film? Well, it takes place immediately after the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, which is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At the end of that, Peter Parker / Spider-Man discovered that Mysterio, aka Quentin Beck, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, had disclosed his secret identity to the world. So the entire world was now aware that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. And basically that impacts his life, but also those around him, such as Aunt May, Ned, and the love of his life, MJ. When all three of them get refused admission to MIT in the States, he decides, rather than phoning the university to plead his case, he decides to go to Doctor Strange and ask him to cast a spell where it would basically erase the memory of anyone knowing that he was actually Spider-Man. Of course, he then meddles with the spell mid-spell, and then what happens is we get a situation where anyone who actually knew the identity of Spider-Man starts to bleed through into their universe in what is I think about 17th false start, potentially, of the multiverse in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was teased in various Ant-Man movies, it's been teased in WandaVision, it's been teased in Loki. I think it's potentially fair to say they finally pulled the trigger on it, but we'll get into that. And of course, this is, fair warning, this is going to be a full spoiler special, because anything I basically say after that brief description will probably, I'm not sure if it'd be considered a spoiler in terms of plot, but certainly a spoiler in terms of your enjoyment, because this is a film where you kind of want to go in, if at all possible, as cold as possible, in order to get the most out of the various references, teasers, reveals, and fan service moments of the film. So, Lee, let's come to you first. What were your expectations going in? I mean, was it one of your most anticipated films? How did you feel about? I mean, we can talk about this bit at the moment, but I mean, it's already been established that certain villains from other incarnations of Spider-Man, such as Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, have been in it. How were you feeling about potentially seeing all these universes combined into a live action film? Because of course, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the best Spider-Man film of all time, I had already kind of done that before.
I was looking forward to it. The trailers sort of had left me a bit nonplussed. I thought it was a pretty generic kind of campaign. Like, there was just nothing about it that kind of popped. I think I liked the idea going into it, because I think everything I expected to kind of happened, give or take, with the film. So yeah, I was just looking forward to it. It's just, again, it's one of those ones, I think I've described it before, where the Marvel movies are those rare sometimes films where you go along with a group of your friends or your pals, or it's a shared experience. That sometimes you see films at a film festival or some sort of indie movie that's only on at like 9 o'clock at night at some sort of small independent cinema that you're paying maybe a bit of a higher price for. and then you don't get that kind of conversation, for better or worse, about what was this film like? Did you like that? What were they thinking there? And I quite enjoy having those kind of shared conversations and hearing from people that love a film or maybe had their own criticisms, or being able to turn to someone at the end of the film and go, what did you think of that? And it's always good to get something like that. I think the last few movies, I thought Black Widow was all right. I wasn't too enamored with Shang-Chi or Eternals, but this one I would have been a bit more excited had I enjoyed Far From Home more. I think Homecoming is one of the best Marvel movies. I think it's bright, it's colourful, it's fun, it really got the tone. It was the kind of Spider-Man movie I was always looking forward to. And then I thought the sequel was pretty poor, so I was slightly nonplussed kind of going into this one, but excited to kind of take part in the discourse and to see where it would go again.
Yeah, I'm now actually just having flashbacks to, I think, a previous episode where we probably discussed Far From Home, and I remember being a lot keener on the villain of Mysterio than you were, and his motivations and stuff like that. But, I mean, I guess part of the reason why I was looking forward to this episode, and I think you were as well, is because of the fact that we can openly talk about the film, because even in WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups and stuff like that, not everyone is being able to go and see it on the first day. So you can say, I liked it, I didn't like it, but basically you can't really go into any more detail than that. But here we can go into a lot of detail. So I guess we could just sort of dive straight in. I mean, I was looking forward to it. I think the advertising campaigns and the marketing trailers and stuff like that, it was kind of just ticking things over, because there's probably a few open secrets out there. I mean, a lot of people were expecting a lot. Some people who were not really involved in the film had to keep up a pretense through various other marketing campaigns for other films that they were not in the film. It was like I was expecting a lot, and I think it's safe to say that it delivered for me. But so as we said, this is a full spoiler special. But we'll sort of talk about the first sort of act of the film, which is sort of what leads up to the establishing of the multiverse. I mean, what did you make of the decision to sort of unmask sort of Peter Parker and how he sort of was dealing with the fallout of that? Because it's not sort of something we've actually really seen before on the big screen. I mean, in the Tobey Maguire ones, we had sort of Spider-Man deciding to sort of give up being Spider-Man briefly in Spider-Man 2 and stuff like that, because of his desire to sort of be Mary Jane and stuff like this. But this was a decision taken out of his hands, and he could sort of finally see the impact of just what, being Spider-Man and what it meant to the people who were closest to him meant. I mean, what did you make of that decision?
I liked it on paper. I think the execution was a little bit left to be desired. It was almost, I kind of got the impression where they had this cliffhanger, and I'm pretty sure there was another type of Spider-Man movie kind of up the sleeves in a way, where they were like, if we can kind of, because I know things were a bit touch and go about sort of Marvel and Sony making this movie, and I can imagine there being a sort of, Spider-Man 3 where it's like, it's going to be kind of focused on him being unmasked and kind of what that means and sort of.
Yeah, I do know that movie. I think it was pitched as Kraven the Hunter, which could have potentially been an interesting piece of casting, depending on the ethnicity of the actor that they cast in it. Hopefully not somebody white and just sort of tanned to make him look darker. But I think it would have been that even maybe J. Jonah Jameson himself back as J.K. Simmons back in the role, although as a more sort of Fox Newsy media pundit, was going to employ Kraven the Hunter to hunt the Spider-Man, because that could have been a really interesting movie where it was just Spider-Man looking to survive. In the similar way where I thought John Wick 3, was at the end of it, when every single assassin in New York City was tasked with killing John Wick for a lot of money, it was just going to be like 90 minutes of Keanu Reeves trying to get out of New York alive. That's the kind of movie I would have liked to have seen, maybe like a more streamlined action movie. But I think when they had the ability to still remain sort of in the MCU and sort of tie in with the multiverse sort of stuff, then obviously, then a lot more windows and doors and other things that can open were opened.
Yeah, because you kind of got the impression they sort of went through the motions quite quickly, to almost move on from that. Like, I think that was a really interesting part of the movie for me. I don't think they executed as well as they could. Like, you have this character that's been accused of murder, but then it almost seems to be like he just gets to like hang out in his like living room watching it sort of unfold in the news. It's not like he necessarily gets kind of arrested or sort of on bail. It sort of seems to be sort of like oh right, we kind of need to keep him out and about to sort of do his things. Like it just didn't kind of click as something. And I think you make a really interesting point, like a sort of a John Wick 3 about trying to escape New York could have been quite interesting. But I think, you know, the fact that everything kind of went smoothly in the end after all that big hiccup to kind of bring together this film, I felt like this was the one that they all really wanted to do together. And it was like, right, how do we wrap this up really quickly and perhaps not make it the smoothest way into sort of a multiverse kind of story?
Yeah, because I mean it's like, you know, he's presented with, you know, potentially being a criminal, a fugitive and stuff, and then about 2 seconds later, it's like all the charges of you have been dropped, and apparently instead Stark Industries are the main culprit behind, because they were the ones that owned the drone technology, which apparently killed Mysterio. I mean, I was still always very dubious over whether Mysterio was actually dead or if it was another illusion. I was potentially expecting him to be back as the sixth member of the Sinister Six, because we've got 5 villains here. We've got Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Electro, Lizard, and Sandman. Surprisingly, well, maybe somewhat surprisingly, all featuring the actors who played them in the original films were returning. Obviously, sort of Willem Dafoe, Jamie Foxx, and Alfred Molina have been in the press sort of talking about the roles, but there was still, I think, a question mark for me over whether sort of Rhys Ifans as Lizard and Thomas Hayden Church would return as Sandman, given the majority of their appearances in this movie certainly seem to be almost entirely CGI. I mean, what did you make of the returning villains, and how some of them were slightly retconned? I think it's safe to say that Jamie Foxx got the better deal out of his aesthetic choices this time round.
It was one of those ones. I didn't do a Spider-Man sort of rewatch before the films. I think I've only ever watched the Amazing Spider-Man movies like maybe once sort of each at the cinema, and then obviously I've watched the original Spider-Man trilogy. I've watched the first 2 a couple of times, certainly, and the third one, and I've seen them all at the cinemas. But I'd completely forgotten about some of these villains. I'd forgotten about the Lizard. I was like, sitting there like, who's he? What one was he? What film he was in again? I completely forgot about the plot of Amazing Spider-Man 1, and like he wanted to turn everyone basically into like reptiles and dinosaurs, which was quite interesting. And there was just little things like that where they just sort of like slipped the mind. I think my problem with the villains, and I think it's actually my overall problem with the whole film, is like, I have no complaints whatsoever about this kind of nostalgia fest, and I will come on to it obviously, but I just sort of felt when I was watching these villains, I could almost, I don't know if it was because of making a rare return to sort of an IMAX 3D sort of presentation, but I found the whole sort of cinematography look of the film so kind of murky that often the times that we see some of these characters, whether it's Sandman, the Dr. Reptile,
Dr. Reptile. Yeah. I would like to see they should rename those as Dr. Reptile. I would like that.
Goblin, a lot of them, it's all kind of like really dark, and you can't kind of make out some of the things. Like I could barely ever tell, sort of the look of this kind of reptile. I mean, he's in sort of this like prison cage thing in Doctor Strange's like house, and it's like it just felt so dark and grimy. It's like, turn the light up a bit, or maybe make it a more interesting sort of environment where, even later on when we sort of have the, a face-off with Electro, like the first time they meet is in like a huge area of like darkened woodland in sort of North New York and stuff like that. And it's just like, I can't quite see the action that's going on. Like you have these really big, larger than life, and in a lot of ways iconic kind of super villains, and it's just not showcasing them in the best possible light. It just kind of dulled the experience of seeing them battling with Spider-Man again, or making a return. It's just like, I want to be able to see this and connect with it.
Yeah, I'm just realizing that there's definitely a pecking order in terms of villains, in the Doc Ock and Green Goblin get their fight scenes at daytime, and then everyone else gets their night scenes at nighttime. Although I'm surprised that the IMAX was in 3D. I hadn't realized that they were still actually plowing ahead with retrofitting 3D onto these films. That's a shame because I think it definitely would have impacted the viewing experience because I didn't really have much of an issue with my screening, and I mean I'm keen to sort of get your views on this, but I went at sort of lunchtime on opening day, and apart from probably me and sort of a couple of guys around about my age near the back, there wasn't a huge amount of, let's say, that sort of that midnight Avengers Endgame sort of energy where every sort of little sort of callback and stuff like that was getting whooped and cheered and stuff like that. I mean, it's quite clear that some people in the audience were just going to see a movie because I mean they left during the end credits, and everyone knows there's always stuff in the end credits. You never leave. Although I don't feel bad actually because they should have checked their tickets. The group that came in during the end credits, maybe they actually thought that it was the opening credits, but let's just say that the end credits of the film detail exactly who is in this film. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would stay off IMDb as well because they're on there already. So but I mean, was there any sort of particular moments that got a reaction? Because I think for me, one of my favourite moments was actually the when Norman Osborn sort of reuses his famous line, "I'm somewhat of a scientist myself." That got a big reaction from me.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I suppose this is maybe the moment we can say we're dipping into spoilers because
there's no way home from this point onwards.
Yeah. So obviously the scientist got quite a chuckle from the crowd, and it's something I never kind of partake in myself. I always find it a bit hard to sort of switch on that sort of side of me, but I kind of there was like the first time Andrew Garfield appeared, big reaction.
Andrew Garfield's in this movie. Hang on, he's been saying all year that he isn't in it.
Under the Silver Lakes, Andrew Garfield, finally is in a film people are going to go see.
Well, I think he should definitely be nominated and win for Best Actor for Tick, Tick, Boom. If nothing else, just for his dedication. Every single press conference that he's had to do where he's had to deny vehemently that he's not in the film. I think it's one of those method performances he's had to keep up all year, and he deserves the prize.
Free Andrew Garfield. Like that got a huge whoops and cheers, and the same for obviously Tobey Maguire appearing. Like, it was one of those things I was taken a little back by, because it's not something we really do here in the UK. It's something you associate with sort of America, and you see these videos on YouTube. And, while I had a smile on my face, I wasn't someone that's sort of like whooping and cheering. But, I'm glad people had a good time. But it certainly caught me off guard. If I watched this film in America, I would have expected that reaction. So
I bet you were whooping and cheering when Blofeld came back and no time to die.
Well,
like,
we'll see about that. But yeah, so it was good to see that. And it was the same as well. Like, opening night, 5 p.m. IMAX crowd. We still have people leave during the end credits as well. I think it's a weird thing, these films sometimes. Like, you think everyone's going to stay till the end credits, but like, who are these people? Are they not in on it? It's always a bit bizarre. Like, that's what you would expect with like the week 2 crowd.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I mean, it's almost like marketing campaigns. Real Marvel fans don't leave during the credits and stuff like that. I mean, we'll get onto the credits bit at the end. But I mean, obviously there was, basically did you feel there was any real surprises in the movie? Because obviously, the internet being what it is, there's been speculation for sort of 3 years. I mean, nobody ever actually got a photo, well really in during production, certainly of anyone on set, but the cameos that most people were expecting were there, including Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, appearing, reprising his role as Daredevil from the well, I guess it is now an MCU canon TV series on Netflix. So a lot of people were happy about that he's being brought into the movies. But I mean, was there any real sort of surprises, given that it's nearly impossible to avoid that stuff on the internet?
Not really, but I am always envious of people like that don't get spoiled by that. Like I logged into YouTube this morning to watch some football highlights, and like on the front page, it must say something about some of the stuff I follow, but it was like a camera copy of Andrew Garfield going, "I love you guys," and it's like, Jesus Christ, the film hasn't been out 12 hours yet. I mean, there was nothing that surprised me. Even sort of the Matt Murdock thing, it got spoiled by that John Campea guy that sort of released, like, for me...
Shout out to them. I thought these were photoshopped, but I was just putting my watermark on them, just in case,
The highlight of this whole ad campaign was, like, for people that haven't seen it, this John Campea guy. I do sometimes watch him ironically. I find him a bizarre character. But he's this YouTuber that, like, he really is into this, like, comic book world and stuff. And he had, like, some leaked photos. So it was the picture of the 3 Spider-Men sort of on the Eiffel... Not the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty. And,
although donated by France, so, still a French thing.
Yeah, so they were all lined up. And there was a picture of the Matt Murdock at the table. So all those pictures turned out to be true. But there was like a huge discourse where it was like, some people were like, actually, it doesn't look like some of the pictures may be real or genuine.
I actually did think that the legs under the table were not right, but it's a difficult one because obviously you're wanting the social media hits, but then this was the same guy that was calling for people to be issued $1 million fines when they break an NDA. So that was the biggest irony of that whole situation.
I mean, what a worker! But for me, the highlight of him is that discourse around those pictures where he was like, actually, having looked at sort of where Andrew Garfield's penis is, this looks like a genuine picture. You're just like, oh, this is what we've come to. So things like that, like, I would love to be someone that goes into these films genuinely surprised sometimes, but I kind of expected things to go the way they did. I mean, I thought Aunt May would die in this film. And,
really?
Yeah, and the one thing that did shock me, and I thought was going to happen at the end, was I thought one of the Spider-Men would die, and I thought it would be like the Tobey Maguire one. And I thought for a second it was going to be, because like he gets like stabbed from behind, and I'm like, oh, he's done for. But then he's like, no, I'm not too.
I just shake it off. Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I was surprised by the death of Aunt May. I mean, again, you shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't seen it. I mean, it says spoiler special on everything before you click play, but I mean, this was one of the things that I would put in my review, in that I think Peter Parker / Spider-Man is probably the Marvel character who's been put through the ringer more than anyone else over the course of, what now, 8 movies now. He's lost multiple Uncle Bens. In Amazing Spider-Man, 2, he failed to save his girlfriend, fiancée, Gwen Stacy. He's lost, another father figure he lost his parents, obviously. Then he lost another father figure in Tony Stark. He then, manages to piss off yet another bearded, goateed mentor figure in Doctor Strange. So it's just like, I mean, the guy, the young kid just can't catch a break. And then, with Aunt May then sadly passing away. Although, I mean, it would have been nice to have her feature in the scenes with the other Spider-Man, just to, given the fact that, the other two were sort of laboured with sort of Rosemary Harris and Sally Field. And then it was like, whoa, when did Aunt May get hot, kind of thing. But, I was surprised.
Her death scene was slightly ruined, because it was like in this
very dark, rubbly building.
Yeah, and it's like, for a second, it's like, wait, what happened there? Is it just like,
I believe she was stabbed by the pincers on the glider from the Goblin? Yeah, but again, it wasn't entirely clear.
Yeah, just like make things a bit not obvious and stuff, but do some good cinematography and lighting. It's like, even you think like the Spider-Man suits, like they're so bright and colourful, and at the end they're just sort of fighting on scaffolding. I mean, you've got this exciting prospect of this like multiverse, and you can fight across space and time and dimensions, and it's like, let's have a fight in like a condo hallway, let's have a fight on some scaffolding around the Empire.
I kind of actually liked the condo hallway it had the fight. I thought it was quite brutal, actually. So, yeah. But I mean, the scaffolding one, I think the problem being that this is something that didn't factor into the Spider-Verse, because each version of Spider-Man was so different. Here, yeah, they are all essentially just wearing slight variations of the same costume. So when they're all swinging around, it's very difficult to make out which one is what. Well, even to the point where the Parkers themselves are like, am I Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3? They got confused as well. So, I mean, I don't know how the audience would have kept up to track with who's who.
But the one thing, like, I know I sound a bit down on the film, but I love the patter between all the sort of the Spider-Men, and it's maybe I actually want to kind of go back and revisit the films that I really enjoyed. I remember going to see Spider-Man 1, the original Tobey Maguire movie, at like the View in Aberdeen, and it was like opening weekend, and they had like spiders there and like boxes and stuff from like maybe like a local animal shop. Or
I clearly went to a different cinema because I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, I got that. Like, that was the Saturday screen. It was just like, it felt like an event. And, I have such fond memories of seeing those first two films in the cinema. And then kind of the third one was, I know it's had a bit of a reevaluation, but I doubt I can get past how terrible it probably was. Like, I remember being so excited for it. And then even The Amazing Spider-Mans, I was like, I've really come to love Andrew Garfield as like a person and an actor, and I think he's a real special talent. But then kind of when I was watching that film going, God, was he actually that good in those Amazing Spider-Man movies? And it's almost made me want to go back and revisit them, because I suppose it's almost similar to, not that those films are anywhere sort of near the level of Twilight, but you think of like Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, they've gone on to have really great careers, but they had these odd little kind of franchise movies sort of in the middle. And I'd love to kind of just go back and go, actually, how good was he in those movies? Because I thought he came across really quite well.
Yeah, no, I've always been the opinion of, it's like sort of Doctor Who or Bond. You've always got like your Spider-Man. So Tobey Maguire was the Spider-Man that I first experienced. That was the film which kind of reignited Hollywood's love for superhero movies. The first movie to ever make over $100 million on its opening weekend. Came out after 9/11. People needed a hero, particularly in New York, so therefore it did that. I've always been of the opinion that I think Garfield made the best Spider-Man. He was very good with all the sort of quips and stuff like that. However, he always seemed a bit too cool and cocky to be Peter Parker. Obviously he had great chemistry with Emma Stone, but anyone probably would have great chemistry with Emma Stone. Look at Ryan Gosling as well. But for me, Holland has always been the best Peter Parker because, well, one, he's probably closest in age to a teenager and very much looks more like a teenager than the other ones. And it sort of fit into the sort of John Hughes vibe that John Watts has been going into this one. But there was always the worry going into this film that, on paper, it was potentially just repeating the mistakes of Spider-Man 3, which, has its moments, but most people will agree there's far too many villains. You've got sort of Green Goblin 2, you've got Sandman, and you've got Venom as well. What I kind of appreciated was, this is always Parker's downfall in most of the movies, is despite everything bad that happens to him, he still tries to be a decent person, obviously going into the line of that, with great power comes great responsibility. Faced with the fact that, if he sends these villains back, they're immediately going to die at the hands of Spider-Man or something. So he actually wants to try and come up with a way to sort of rehabilitate them and send them back to be good people. And then obviously he just ends up creating more problems for himself when a couple of them turn on him. And J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson captures all this. And at one point I thought that was going to be a way to bring in the Sinister Six, and the fact there was 5 of them, but he was going to label Spider-Man as like the ringleader, and it's just 6 members of the Sinister Six. That would have been a fun thing to put in, but there was lots of references. But that was one I thought they could have put in, but they seemed to miss. But the fascinating thing was sort of the ending, where the only way to save the universe and the multiple universes is for everyone to forget who Peter Parker was in the first place. And this sort of leaned into sort of what I sort of felt watching it was one of the inspirations in terms of his performance, was that of sort of Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, where sort of the sequence where he sort of gets to see what the world would have been like without him. And obviously, he was wanting to get back with Mary Jane and tell her the truth. But then when he sees the plaster on her head from where she got injured during the fight, we get this realization that, everyone is a lot safer if they don't know. So he's going to sort of continue down that path. So I mean, where do you think the next Spider-Man sort of is going to go? Because I mean, there's rumors that he is provisionally signed up for another trilogy. He said he wouldn't be doing more. Once he ages out, he was going to do something else. But those Marvel dollars, it's very very difficult to turn them down.
I think when it was sort of before the sort of end of this film, I assumed all of them would go to MIT together, all three of them, and until when they sort of announced this next kind of potential trilogy, I had it in my head of, I think it was it 22 Jump Street, or the end credits 21 Jump Street, where Ice Cube goes, "You guys are going to college," and that's what I thought was going to kind of potentially happen next. If they ended it on this note, I'd be more than happy. I expect we'll see sort of Spider-Man in a few movies, but it was just little moments like that where I enjoyed. As I say, I thought the script was by and large pretty good when it came to characters interacting off each other, and a big shout out to that lab scene and so on. It made me think of the complaint people have oftentimes, Batman, look, why doesn't he do detective work? And there's Spider-Man being the Spider-Man being boffins and stuff. So that was exciting. But it was just that little scene at the end where he goes to see sort of MJ, and she's got that little cut, and just that moment, I thought the acting was pretty wonderful there, of that moment of oh, her life would just be a little bit better without sort of me getting her into scrapes, and who knows what might happen next time. And I also did predict that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man would save her when we see her in the trailer fall.
We talked about that, I think, was it on a previous episode or at some point? But yeah, no, he got his redemption moment, which was nice to see. And I mean, I agree with you that I think my favourite moments in the film weren't the action sequences and stuff like that. I think one of my favourite scenes of the year will definitely be the scene with all three Spider-Men just sort of getting ready for the big fight at the end. So Andrew, stuff like Andrew Garfield, cracking Tobey Maguire's back and stuff like that, because he's still got his back problems. Or the thing which I was hoping they were going to address, and they did, which this was my favourite moment, was definitely them discussing Tobey Maguire's organic web shooters, and if it came out of anywhere else, or do you have problems regenerating more and stuff like that. I mean, that was that scene where it was just three of them, and then you get the "I love you guys" sort of thing. It was just it was just really sort of sweet to see, and that's I think the moment that you could call it cynical, you can call it complete fan service, but it was nice to see. I mean, Andrew Garfield himself has been very sort of outspoken about how it went sort of at the end, where actually Tobey Maguire had a similar thing where he was meant to do a fourth one and it was cancelled. Then we got Andrew Garfield was meant to be doing a third one and it got cancelled, and it was just, I mean, I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 I think is probably the worst Spider-Man film. It's just such a mess, and the villain in Dan DeHane's Green Goblin is just not very good as well. So I think it was nice for him to get that moment again, which is probably part of the draw. I'm sure he was very on the fence about doing it, but I'm really glad that he got to have a few of those moments where he seemed to be enjoying donning the suit again, which was nice to see.
Yeah, and I think that's something to be commended as well, about it's tied together the end of this trilogy and sort of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 films, and then sort of the Tobey Maguire films in a really good way. I mean, I still do not know, can't make sense of how these dead people came into the universe, and I don't really get the MacGuffin of how that works. I need film geeks or something.
There's a very interesting problem that their MacGuffin and how they explained it is just immediately invalidated by one of the post-credit scenes. But I'll get on to that.
Yeah. So I don't quite get how that worked, or why you get all these people at the end sort of coming through. Why these specific villains and they're dead people, that made no sense to me. I was by the end, I was when I started thinking, I was oh, they're dead. That doesn't make any sense to me. So does that mean everyone through history that's known Peter Parker since he was a kid, or a baby is it just makes no sense whatsoever.
I think I think what Doctor Strange said, that anyone who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man was going to eventually bleed through into that universe. So anyone who found out their secret identity. So, I mean, if the movie had gone on, say, 5 minutes more, I guess we potentially could have had Topher Grace as Eddie Brock coming through as that version of Venom. we could have, I mean, I was hoping for like an alternative universe version of Bruce Campbell as Mysterio might have come through and stuff like that. But I mean, it was nice that, even beyond like Toby and Andrews, like even like Alfred Molina's Doc Ock got like, he managed to get like a completion to his arc, and Willem Dafoe got a bit more there. So I mean, yeah, it's like they apparently were all pulled through just at the moment of their death. I mean, whether or not they now are completely rehabilitated and go back to their universes, I mean, I don't know what happens there. But it's like they were pulled through at the moment of their death, but the other two Spider-Men weren't. I mean, again, it's slightly fuzzy, but the first post-credit scene, which was hinted at a movie just out a couple of months ago, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, sees Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock basically grilling a bartender about what's been going on in this universe, and learns about Hulk and Captain America, Iron Man, and Thanos, who loves a purple alien who loves stones, as opposed to aliens who like eating brains and stuff like that. Now, he had no idea who Peter Parker or Spider-Man was, so there's no reason why he should have technically been brought through to that universe. But basically, he was put through there to leave a tiny bit of alien symbiote there, so we can now get Venom in the MCU. So that's why. Because initially, one thing that confused me, and this is where it gets very complicated as to what's Spider-Man and what's not Spider-Man in terms of MCU and Sony, is you've got the Morbius movie coming out, and it has a picture, it's got murder written over a poster of a Spider-Man, but I think that Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and you've got the Vulture in there, who's from Tom Holland's one, and then it's all very confusing because I think it was in the Morbius trailer, there was a picture of the Oscorp building, but in this film, Norman Osborn says Oscorp doesn't seem to exist in the MCU version of New York, and so yeah, it's basically your noodle gets baked and scratched even more when you start going down that rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It makes no sense, but it's one of those ones. I'm thankfully not holding this film up to that high standards. Like,
I'm sure there's Reddit forums already which will do that for you.
Absolutely, we'll go through. We'll do like a Reddit MMA one day where it's just like we'll go through some of this nonsense.
What do you think's more interesting, the Under the Silver Lake one or the Spider-Man No Way Home one?
Under the Silver Lake, obviously. Like, that is just like one of the greatest films of the past 10 years.
Absolutely. Another shout out to go, if you enjoyed Under Garfield this, go and watch Under the Silver Lake. So I guess there's just one final, well, I would say scene to speak of, but it's not really. And it's the first time I think they've done this since, I think it would have been Captain America, the first Avenger, and that we did not get the post-credit scene, which normally sets up the next. The mid-credit scene normally sets up the next bit in the universe. The post-credit scene is normally quite a funny one, but they switched this around, and instead of getting a scene with Doctor Strange to set up the Multiverse of Madness, we actually got the first trailer for the film. I mean, what did you make of that decision?
If I thought about it, it made sense. I had the same thing. She was like, "Oh, we've not done this since Captain America," and I was the same. Like, "Oh, we've got the funny one, so we're getting the serious one." But I think probably what happened is these complicated Marvel, Sony, Disney deals. Like, we'll give you a trailer to advertise your next film, but we're not going to give you like something that's going to promote a film. Maybe I don't know, because I was trying to think what was where like the two post-credit sequences with the other Spider-Mans, like that was just promoting Spider-Man, wasn't it? Whereas this is the first time that's not had two that will tie into a Spider-Man movie. I can't quite remember.
The last one, Far From Home, did feature a scene where it was revealed that Nick Fury wasn't Nick Fury. He was one of the Skrulls, and that Nick Fury was on a spaceship, which was potentially setting up the Secret Invasion TV series that they're working on. That was the last one, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's the first time they've done this, and it's interesting that they went with the full trailer. I mean, I can't actually remember when. I believe it was February, but I can't remember if it's been moved back now to sort of May time or whatever, but when that's... Oh, no, it probably has been moved back to May because they were doing a lot of reshoots due to COVID stuff. Not due to any problems with the film, apparently, but due to COVID restrictions and stuff like that. They didn't get a lot of stuff done first time round. So, I mean, so? I mean, what did you make of the film overall? I mean, you've been slightly critical in some places, but it sounds like you still enjoyed it. I mean, this for me felt like a weirdly standalone film for the MCU, but it was a film which, in order to enjoy it to its full extent, you kind of had to know every other Spider-Man movie which had gone before it. So I mean, overall, what was your feeling coming out of it?
I can't deny that I had an enjoyable time. The movie was good. I enjoyed seeing sort of some of these characters brought back to life. I just think ultimately my problems were that I think it wasn't a well-made movie. Like there's a version of this where
Lee's standard complaints for every Marvel Cinematic Universe: the cinematography is crap and the action is not well directed.
Yeah, it's just like I'm sitting there thinking like, I this could be better, and it's not even big things. It's like instead of having your big climax on scaffolding, do something, just be innovative. Like you even had that multiverse scene with like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man where they're having a little fight. Like do something like that.
Yeah, the mirror universe scene. Yeah, that was mirror dimension. Yeah, that was a good fight. Yeah.
Just like I'm not the film writer. Just be a little bit more inventive and all that sort of stuff. Like I think of something like that, even like the previous fight in New York where they had it in sort of central kind of downtown New York, etc. Really interesting. And I just want to see some more of these films in kind of daylight, just to like make good use of like these wonderful colorful suits and characters, so I can kind of take in the action and not be sitting there sort of feel like I'm kind of watching a film behind a bit of kind of sludge. It was just, that was a bit of disappointment. It just stopped me kind of fully relaxing into it. I still think it's better than the last one, but it's not as good as Homecoming, which is easily one of the best Marvel movies, period. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I would easily watch it again. But, all eyes now turn to next week's release for me, which I'm so excited for, which is Licorice Pizza.
For me, it will, so Marvel, if you're taking note, there's still time to work on the films that are going to be released in 2022. Basically, film every fight scene during the day, using natural lighting, and then also stop retrofitting your films for 3D because that adds another muddy layer of filtering over it, and we don't want that. So for me, I absolutely loved it. I had the biggest grin on my face. I don't know if it's just this year and everything that's gone on, but I've fallen for the fan service hook, line and sinker. I was a big fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I really liked what they did here as well. And yeah, it was 5 stars for me. I mean, I was swithering on the fence between a 4 and a 5, but my pure enjoyment levels just sneaked out and I gave it a 5. And that's without receiving any free merchandise from Sony or everyone like that. But going back, when I watch it again, maybe it'll drop to a 4 or stuff. I think it was just I was aware of the sheer amount of knowledge you needed to have in order to fully enjoy everything. And that if you had not, I mean, there's probably some young fans out there who have only grown up with the Tom Holland one, so they probably didn't have a clue who these other Spider-Man were. But for me, first reaction was it was a 5. But depending on how COVID goes, I might try and get back to it. Although, a busy public screening. I don't know. But I mean, it certainly seems to be already a hit at the box office. 7.2 million, which is nearly 3 million more than Bond on opening day. I mean, they're both the same sort of length. So comparison-wise, I mean, it's pretty good. And hopefully we can keep the cinemas open, given everything else. Spider-Man's greatest foe might be Omicron. the new Spider-Man villain. But yeah, no, we're going to be back in a little bit with a roundup of our favourite films of 2021, and then also squeezing in maybe some reviews of The Matrix, and then of course Lee's number one anticipated film. He's not caring about the return to The Matrix. He wants a return to the Paul Thomas Anderson cinematic
I want
universe.
a return to discourse about paedophilia
and dodgy racial slurs apparently as well is another thing as well. But yeah, I mean, anyone who's apparently complaining about Licorice Pizza clearly never watched Almost Famous. Just saying. It's kind of similar. So yeah, we'll be back soon, but hope you enjoyed the Spider-Man one. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.